According to Albert Einstein, we cannot solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. My name is Corinna, and I'm the host of Toward a New World. The world seems to be falling apart. Are you as frustrated as I am with the talk about how to fix things or what needs to change, yet nothing changes? In the episodes, I invite people to look from different perspectives, sometimes even contrary to the current points of view. My intention is to evoke a different level of consciousness by empowering listeners to explore what is true for them and begin to live their lives from that place, thus changing their lives and through it, the world. If this appeals to you, I ask you to subscribe to the podcast on this channel.
Hello and welcome. Here we are again, and today I am with my friend Kimberly Parry. I met her when I was doing the TEDx talk in last year in October, and she was a fellow speaker and had an incredibly interesting subject. So I had to have her on my podcast. Let me introduce Kimberly. She is, after a 16-year career in academic, Kimberly got her E.h.D, Experience of Hard Knocks degree, as she navigated health challenges, a divorce, and the loss of her career, all in the same year. Today, she's a walking miracle who understands what it takes to go through periods of rebranding and emerge empowered in life. Combining her skills as a certified master professional coach and certified personal stylist, Kimberly is your real life fairy godmother who helps everyday women overcome burnout and have fun doing it as they regain their confidence, reclaim their power, and own their style as they design their signature lives. Welcome, Kimberly, and I am so happy having you here.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. For anyone who doesn't know, I am a total fangirl of Corinna. I just think she is amazing, and I am so excited to be with you again. I just adore you. So it's fun.
I adore you too. Thank you, Kimberly. Let's start with, from my perspective, fashion comes and goes. Yet it seems that style is independent of fashion. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, that statement is totally aligned with what I have discovered to be a very powerful connection between our spirituality and personal development and the way that we express that and communicate that in the world. I think in spiritual circles, and you had mentioned with my bio, I spent 16 years in academia. And I actually taught academic religion courses. So religion, spirituality, philosophy, all of that, theology, all of that meaty stuff is at the core of what I did professionally before my dark night of the soul. And in that time period, I was very similar. I never followed trends. I didn't follow fashion. That wasn't my passion. And it felt very egoic, just the world of fashion styling and fashion merchandising, which I had taken a course in that my freshman year of college and was so turned off by some of the rules and constraints that felt very, felt very dictative and felt very confining And so I moved into liberal arts, which felt a little bit more liberal in English and feminist literature and things like that. And so it's very interesting that I became a personal stylist that came to me down the road. But as I've worked in the world of fashion styling, the way that I would define the difference between fashion and style, and I agree, trends will come and go. Fashion changes, and it is a very artistic form of expression. Some people think that, I'm a rebel rouser to the industry. I'm not here to change the industry. The industry is very dynamic, but there is a difference between fashion and style. And fashion is about the construction of clothing, the artistry of clothing. Fashion is about what we wear. Image is about how other people perceive us and that dynamic. But to me, style is an internal, personal thing. And fashion is one way to express that. So yes, we have a fashion style, but we have a communication style and a relationship style. Our style is about who we are at our core, and knowing our style is less about retail therapy, right? And it's more about personal connection. And when we know who we are, then we use our environment as a way to express that and as a way to engage with the world authentically and powerfully, in a way that I have found to be incredibly personal, incredibly sacred, and an incredibly beautiful, empowering experience when I've worked with women, individuals, and organizations, and tapping into the power of style as a way to navigate the world more effectively.
So style, if I understand it correctly, is a very personal expression of how you dress and how you interact with the world.
Yes.
Okay. So that brings up a question, especially since I am dealing or targeting older people. We age.
Mhm.
Does the style then that I have change over time or not?
That is a beautiful question. And the way that I like to talk about that is in terms of branding and personal branding. And some people
Okay.
think that that's just about business or just about image. And for me, personal branding, which is separate from professional branding, is about who we are. It's our core. It's our core values. It's our mission, right? When you think about a business or when you think about a brand and how it's built, there's a life cycle. And for our personal brand, it's also a life cycle. When you think about your formative years, from birth till early 20s, mid 20s, that's what I call product development, right? It's that period of, you're testing the market, you're trying things out. And I actually love that teenagers naturally tap into that power of fashion as a mode of expression, right? For them, it's a period of self-discovery. They're trying on different personalities. They're trying on different parts of themselves. And so that period is all about exploration. It's about, trying and failing. And like, you couldn't pay me to redo adolescence. It was so beautifully and perfectly painful. Right. And then you move into the next phase, which is, your mid 20s to, mid 30s, somewhere in there, where you're actually in that branding period. You're in that period where you're putting yourself out there. You're settling into knowing a little bit more about what your strengths and weaknesses are, and you're really cultivating your voice. You're cultivating who you are, how you show up in the world. And that period of branding really is defined a lot by doing. It's defined a lot by the roles that we play. It's in that time period that a lot of people become parents, right? And so we start to identify as mothers or fathers. We get into different relationships. We define who we are in our friendships, in our careers, and it's very much influenced by the way that we engage with the external world, our external presentation. Right. But then there's something that happens. Some people call it the midlife crisis. Some people call it an awakening. I think it depends on how we approach that phase. But the midlife phase, right? And, from our mid 40s, moving into what I love that you call elderhood, right? Where it's what I call legacy branding, right? You know the product, the packaging, but something in that phase is where we really move into wanting more of autonomy, wanting more of our authenticity. It's what I call the soul itch, right? Where we move more from doing and into purpose, right? And I love that phase. And then there's the final phase in a business, which is exit strategy, right? When we move into that phase, what is it that we want our legacy and our brand, as we're thinking about an exit strategy when it comes to business? Are we selling a company? Are we passing it on? When you think about what is going to live on when I retire, or when I move on. And that exit strategy, I think when it comes to life branding, is one of the most, I'm getting emotional even talking about it, but it is one of the most profound and powerful periods in my experience, as far as what I have gained, from people in that phase of branding. But the wisdom, that you talk about, the elder wisdom that needs to be transmitted to the next generation. If we don't learn from that wisdom, and if that wisdom is not transmuted and passed on, then future generations will have to learn by repeating lessons of the past. We can learn from elder wisdom, or we can ignore it. But I have found, and you can see it throughout history, when we ignore transmuted knowledge, and when we don't have that collaborative energy in the different periods of branding, it impacts humanity in incredibly negative ways. So I would say that the product evolves, right? But who you are, like I think about Dr. Pepper is coming to mind. My grandpa drank Dr. Pepper. My parents, it's like a generational drink, right? The formula of Dr. Pepper, the flavor of that soda hasn't changed, but it's come in different cans. I remember in the 80s, they had the Star Wars can that came out, like there's different things that change about the branding, but ultimately the formula is the same. It's what the doctor ordered. It's just evolved. And it's a product that's carried on through different generations because it's been passed through generationally. So style is transcendent. Who you are is transcendent. The packaging might change. What we wear might change. Our external expression changes based on our phase of development, but who we are is, that's the piece that is lasting.
Listen to me, to you. What came up for me was, in a way, a parallel to when I talk about purpose. We have different purposes through life. Growing up, getting education, getting job, being a parent, whatever. But at a certain point, that loses its power unless it becomes a soul purpose.
Yes.
What is our mission in life? What is it? Why were we born? Why did we even come into life? And what is our contribution to humanity?
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And if we lose sight of that, to me, we're missing the purpose. We're missing the point.
Yeah. So, which leads me to another question on what you talked about in your bio. is you help women overcome burnout in a fun way.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I've heard that combination, burnout, overcoming it in a fun way. Usually it sounded more as a laborious way.
Mhm. Well, and when you look at personal development and spirituality, a lot of times we refer to it as doing the work,
Yeah.
right? We've got to do the internal work. And there are elements of that, that it is there's discomfort and there's pushing through. Like if you think about going to the gym, life really is a soul gym that stretches us and expands us, right? So it's not always necessarily pleasant, but I think that there is a misconception, or sometimes we compartmentalize, right? Where
Mhm.
there's self-care that can be fun. Some people equate self-care with massages or luxury or whatever. And then there's this soul work that is deep, and we've got to sit and meditate and be quiet. And I am not knocking the importance of stillness and taking the time to be still and do that. But what I've found is, in doing what I do with inside out transformations, I combine personal development that does go deep, that does tap into getting soul set, not just using mindset, and really reconnecting with spirit, reconnecting with purpose. But to do it well, we're using fashion as a tool in that transformation. So as I've guided women through these transformations, they get their soul connection and bring that through fashion to their external style. So they get reconnected internally and also have a physical representation at the end that matches who they are. So it's not just one side or the other. It's not just body or spirit. It really is a mind, body, and spirit connection that is really exciting and fun. And when you're experiencing burnout, when you feel depleted, when you feel drained, when you feel lost, when you feel invisible, and you hear the word work, a lot of times it can feel like one more thing on the to-do list, right? And which is why I think a lot of people postpone it or put it off. I'll get to that when I have more energy. I'll get to that when I have more time. But burnout, the source of all burnout is something that's out of alignment. It's being out of alignment
Yeah.
authentically. It's when you're trying to live up to someone else's rules, someone else's expectations, and you're really just going through the motions of doing without checking in to see if the doing is a yes, if it's authentically aligned, or if it's not. And I know that that is something that you live by and that you're skilled at. So you know the importance of moving
And
forward in aligned action.
and it is something I've learned in a way the hard way, because I wouldn't have called it burnout, but life becomes way more difficult
Mhm.
if I am going with my head instead of going with the flow.
Yes. Yes. We get in our own way and
Yeah.
make things more difficult than we need to. That was my experience too. Um, that's what led to my big wake up call, was just doing and head until, life just said, you can't keep existing this way. You're here for a purpose, you're here for a reason, and you need to get on your aligned path, or it's gonna, yeah, in my case, it was affecting my physical health. There was a period I didn't know if I was gonna live or die. And my wake up call was, if you stay on this path, it will kill you.
Yeah. So, how are you specifically helping people to get aligned with their soul purpose?
There's two tools that I use. One, I've got my digital courses and coaching programs where um, there's two different programs. There's Unlock Your It Factor and Unleash Your It Factor. And the Unlock Your It Factor program really just explains the soul system and how it operates. It really is a system that, just like understanding your physical system, you know, we have physical bodies and we know that our hearts play a role and our brain plays a role and the liver, right? There's all these different pieces. And when you understand how your body works together, you can learn to optimize your physical health, right? Spiritual health, there's a spiritual system that operates with your core values, your intentions, your motivations, different aspects of that system and your relationship with yourself. And the Unleash Your It Factor program is how to maintain yourself while navigating relationships with others. Right? We talk about negotiating and compromising, and I say it's you learn how to negotiate and compromise without compromising yourself, right? Without losing yourself in your relationships. So that's the personal development coaching, and that's where my coaching started. And then it moved into the signature soul styling that adds personal development with the personal styling for people who want that transformation. And I use archetypal coaching. I was an English major in college. And so I spent 7 years of my life studying archetypes, which is just another way to say characters and plots in story, right? And there's a reason why we resonate with movies or resonate with books. And it's because there's pieces of ourselves. There's these different aspects of character that make up our character. And when I was trained in styling, one of the first principles of personal styling, and it lit up for me, and it's what made the connection. When I was being trained as a personal stylist, one of the first principles that they say is when you're dressing a client, you want to create an archetype. You create a character and dress them as a character. So when you think about celebrities, right, you can think of the character. I think of Johnny Depp a lot. You know, he's got that kind of piratey feel to him, but that shows up on the red carpet. It shows up in the way that they dress. But the thing that didn't resonate with me when I was being trained that way is that it's not about creating an archetype, because to me, that's a costume party. That's Halloween every day of the year. And that's what burns people out. That's actually part of the problem is we spend so much of our time trying to create an image or trying to be something that we're not, trying to fill a role in a play or trying to fill a role in a story that's not ours. And what archetypal coaching and archetypal styling does together is like the movie Inside Out, right? Where there's these different characters controlling the emotions on the panel. Well, our personalities have different characters that show up in life, and life presents different situations, and the different roles that we play, different circumstances that we play allow some of those different characters to show up and evolve. And I use clothing to help my clients identify their archetypes, identify their strengths and weaknesses, and use fashion as a way to empower them when they go into different circumstances, go into different situations, to channel those aspects of their personality that they want to bring out. And it changes the way they dress. It's not about how they're perceived. It's not about how they look. It's about how they want to show up and how they can bring the best aspects of themselves intentionally and consciously to a given situation. And I love it. It is so much fun.
I can hear that, and I can imagine that. And at the same time, I'm wondering, what did I not get when I was growing up, that over the lifetime I somehow miraculously ingested, digested, made it mine? Because I remember my mother had certain ideas of what looked good in a woman. And as a teenager, she dressed me with her ideas of a 40-year-old woman. Talk about mismatch and absolutely getting to the place where you hated clothing.
Oh, and so many women. One of my clients, she was my +1 actually at TEDx. The friend that I brought with me to TEDx was the one that said this. She said, I have been dressing for my mom my whole life. And she hated shopping. She hated shopping. And when we finished working together, I felt like I should go and apologize to her husband, because once she was shopping and dressing for herself, it didn't make her out of control, but now she enjoys it a little bit more. So where before it was, oh, I don't want to go shopping, I hate going in stores. And when you approach shopping that way, the clothes that you buy tend to reflect that, right? You end up settling, you hate the clothes, you buy things because, oh, I'll just grab this, it doesn't matter, right? But when you know what you're looking for, one, you save more money because you stop settling and you stop buying just anything on the rack because I just want to get out of here. But when you find when you find things that express you and that speak to you, it becomes an investment rather than wasted money. Right. And so on the one hand, I'm like, I am so sorry. I need to tell your husband, I'm sorry, she is going to be shopping more now that she enjoys it. But she actually spends less money and wears the clothes that she does buy daily. Like, you get so much more use out of it because it's an extension of who you are, not an arbitrary need.
Yeah.
But yeah, and what you talked about with mothers and daughters is very common. Mothers tend to come from an image perspective. They worry about how their child looks and what they're communicating and how others perceive them. But when you criticize a teenager's clothing style, and I've learned, I'm a mother too. So, I've had these conversations with my teenagers also. But when you make a comment about a teenager's clothing or style, it's not about image. That's a reflection of who they are, and they're trying to discover who they are. So when you comment on clothing, it's very personal for a teenager. And it's not just saying, oh, that might not be the best way to dress, that might not work with your body. For them, it's, there's something wrong with who you are, or I don't like what you're presenting. And it's a very different way that it's taken and internalized from a teenager's point of view when they're in that mode of product development.
And I have to say, understanding what the role of a teenager is created a totally different relationship to my kids when they were teenagers. I basically told them on their 13th birthday, you have my permission to experiment, to find out who you are separate from me. And that made, cognitively or non-cognitively, I think, quite a difference for them versus for me. My mother thought this is a good way of dressing, and she just put that on me independently that there were 30 years or 25 years or whatever different age difference in us, and a black thing or brown and black and so on is not necessarily a color that a teenager is interested.
Right. Well, and I think parents do it in a well-intentioned way. I
Yes.
mean, most of us don't have style education. Most of us don't have fashion education. And so we figure it out the hard way. And so I'm guessing that there was probably at least some intention of trying to help you save some of that time or save some of that process of learning and save some of that pain.
Yeah.
Right. But just as you said, what your mother came to through her own experience was what worked for her.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's what works for you.
And it made me hate colors that now I'm finally okay with. I got over it. But the question that comes up for me right now is, what questions can you give to people so they can find who they are on their inside and not on the projected outside?
There's different questions, I think, in each of those different phases, right? I would say with teenagers, I would say go try and fail. Like don't be afraid of failure. Like you said, it's exploratory and reframing that. So the questions, that I would ask a teenager would be different than, in the next phase of life, where it would be, what are your interests? What are your passions? What skills do you need to learn really in that next phase of growth, right? In that initial branding phase for that 25 to 35, it's, okay, what are you finding that you like? What are your goals? And what skills do you need to get there? What experience do you need to get there? And kind of cultivating that would be the questions in that phase. In the midlife phase, it really is tapping into what that soul itch is. So much of that phase really is reconnecting with your inner guidance. And a lot of that phase is, okay, take a breath, get out of your head. Like you said, get out of your head, let go of any expectations or rules, all that conditioning, and just really listen to your gut. What is your gut telling you? What are the patterns that you're noticing in the world around you? What do you really feel drawn to internally? What do you really feel like you need to discard? It's the closet cleaning period also. Sometimes we still have clothes from our teenage years or college years at that phase. And it's not that, they're too young or too old, but like they might be a little threadbare. It might be time for an update. And that 2.0, that you like to talk about also. And in the elder wisdom, for me, I just think so much of it is not doubting yourself and leaning into embracing who you are. What is your message? What is your wisdom? And for me, it's not asking them the internal questions as much. I find when it comes to my approach and my experience in being in the presence of elder wisdom, the questions I have are, what can I learn? For me, not asking you, what can I learn? For me, it's, what can I learn? What have you lived? What can you share with me? I just come as an open vessel to that space, because there is so much that is just ready to pour out. That I just want to come with a vessel that is ready to hold it. I just want to listen at that.
You mean with an empty cup, not a full cup?
Yeah. Just coming ready to receive. And so I would say, the question or really like the advice that I would give is, don't doubt the gift that you have to share. I believe it was Rumi who said, do not die with the light still in you. We need your light.
With the music still in you.
Your light. There is no service in playing small. There is no service in dimming that light, because it is one of the most priceless gifts that we have. That's haute couture. That's luxury. That wisdom.
Agreed. And I have to add, for me, the question, what can I learn here, is still an incredibly important question that I'm asking of younger people.
Yeah.
Because what I am learning is they are so much faster than I was. And not to downplay it, it's just the times have changed.
Oh yeah. With technology, with the amount of information and knowledge that's available that, I mean, I didn't even have, right? I mean, I remember when dial-up internet came out, I was on AOL. I had a Commodore 64, and the amount and the speed at which my kids are able to get and process information, I think they deal with a different challenge, which is information overload and overstimulation, and yet their adaptability, their ability to pick up and use technology in powerful ways, light and shadow, right? But yeah, it's a way of thinking. Like my brain doesn't always wrap around it. And so there are times that I bring my kids and I'm like, can you help me figure this out? Can you help me figure out this technology or, whatever. But yeah, we're all here to learn from each other. We're an evolutionary species.
And that makes it fun.
Right? I think so. And exciting and fresh and new.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't get boring. Otherwise, it's the same old, same old.
Yeah. That's when it's work. Right? The hard work.
Got you. Yeah. And I agree. Yeah. So knowing myself and knowing that, yes, on the one hand, I am willing to begin to finally trust myself. What steps can we take to get there earlier? That we don't necessarily have to wait until your 70s or 80s, that you can get there in your 50s, maybe 60s?
Yeah, I think I have an 18-year-old daughter. She just turned 18. I have my first adult child, which is a new phase for me. But she is incredibly wise beyond her years. She is more in tune with herself than most adults I've seen. So I don't know that it's necessarily age specific. And she still doesn't have a fully developed frontal lobe, so there's still growth there. But I think the greatest thing is developing a relationship with ourselves. I think so much of what we learn and focus on in life is our relationship with the world around us or the relationship with others. And we miss the balance of having a relationship with ourselves. And it's not narcissism and it's not pride. But it's a knowing of ourselves. And when you think about dating, that's kind of the framework I use for this week in my course, which is about what's your relationship with yourself. That question came to me. I was in the period of going through my divorce. My ex and I were separated. We were going to counseling, but I remember saying to her, I remember this conversation so clearly because I was wailing, in my grief. And it just feels like he's not even trying. It feels like he doesn't even want to be married. And she just very innocently, it wasn't a slap in the face, but she just innocently asked me, she said, well, Kim, why would you want to be married to you? Like, what do you like about yourself? Why would you want to be married to you? And I never asked myself that question. And I stopped and I started looking at my relationship with myself. And I realized I couldn't even really call myself a friend. As in a lot of cases, I was actually my own worst enemy. I was kind of a frenemy with myself, but more of an acquaintance. And I never gave myself time ever. And that's not about going to the massage parlor, going to get my hair done. It was, I didn't know me. I
just
never checked in with
yourself.
Me. Yeah. And so I talk about dating. I'm like, when you think about a new relationship, when you meet an acquaintance, how do you start? Well, what do you do? Who are you? What do you like? Sometimes we haven't even asked ourselves those questions.
Yeah.
Right? Like, well, what do I like? We spend so much of our lives trying to meet other people's needs and demands. I think, especially as women and mothers, right? I think we worry about what other people like and what other people need that we don't even ask ourselves that. And then you go on a friendship level. Well, how do you become a deeper friend? Well, you spend time with each other. You get to know what the person's pet peeves are, what sets them off, what are their triggers, what's their passion. Well, if we haven't even asked ourselves, who are you? What do you do? What do you like? We haven't gone to that deeper level. Then you go to a relationship of trust, usually when there's been some kind of conflict in a relationship.
Yeah.
All relationships have differences of opinions. We're different people. And when you can work through the hard things and still come out the other side, that's where you develop trust in a relationship. And that's when you move into more committed relationships. And then eventually, right, those covenantal relationships. Sometimes that's marriage, sometimes, but it's like you think about the blood brothers, right? Like when in the movies where the kids cut their fingers and they touch their fingers together, and it's like we're blood brothers. It's that level of bonding, at the end. And I found when I work through clients on this, sometimes they want to have a ceremony, right? Like if you think about it, the blood brother thing, that's a type of ceremony, and these rites of passage, right, that honor that relationship. I found some of my clients want to, it's almost not necessarily a marriage ceremony, but it's like a commitment ceremony to themselves, right? And it's like, well, what are your vows to yourself? Do you honor yourself? Do you cherish yourself in good times and bad? For better or for worse, in richness, and in poverty, in sickness and in health. And a lot of us, I've gone through that process, but I would say that process, dating yourself more than other ways that we, like, yes, take a bath, get a massage. All those things are nice and they help, but really
surface
dating yourself, just 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, right? As a parent, sometimes that's all we get with our kids, but that 5 minutes, that 10 minutes is precious.
Yeah.
Right. And if we don't even have 5 minutes with ourselves and you're burnout, let me tell you, we just identified the source of burnout, right? If you don't have 5 minutes to give to yourself around, how do I want to show up today? What did I like about today? What didn't resonate with me? What's feeling, what's an area of my life where I'm feeling kind of out of sync? Where can I reconnect? And the sooner we tap into that, the more we avoid some of the bigger pain that we get from ignoring that along the way.
So in a way, you are broadening the idea that, and I put it now in, everything starts with yourself.
Everything in life is about relationship.
A marriage starts, how well are you married to yourself? In order to have a marriage with someone else.
Yeah, it's two complete people coming together to experience life together. When we're waiting for someone to complete us, there's already the assumption that we're broken.
It's a joke that I've made is, in marriage, it's not 1/2 plus 1/2 makes 1. It's 1 plus 1 makes 1.
Yeah. And that it's a whole, right?
Yeah.
That what is in one is in the whole, and we're navigating this together.
Yeah.
And I am divorced, I will say that every relationship serves that point. That the relationship didn't complete me, but it helped me become more complete. It helped me become more whole.
Yes. I would,
and that was a challenging situation, and to get into another relationship, fortunately, I've learned now, and I have more to give. I have more to bring, and I'm ready to attract a higher level of relationship in that. But it's all been part of the path. I don't regret or, bemoan it. It was part of my process. And that relationship ultimately helped me develop more wholeness in myself, right? So it's like when we have more of a relationship with ourselves, we have more to give. We feel less depleted because we know who we are. And then in return, we're able to receive more. We're able to learn more. We're less reactionary to other people. We're less threatened by other people. We're able to learn and to grow. It's, a continual progression that way, which I love.
And what you were just saying to me is also how we grow into elderhood. It's the same kind of process.
Yeah. And that I think it's especially important to say one of the questions that I get as a stylist, the two questions I get is asked the most are, do you work with big women and do you work with older women? Those are the questions, as though there's like some kind of weight limit on style or some kind of limit to your ability to feel beautiful and confident and powerful, or that there's an expiration date on our worth. And it
Yeah.
breaks my heart. I'm like, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But isn't that a reflection of our culture, that there is an expiration date on so many things?
Yeah. And in working with different people, I found there's different cultural expectations. I mean, different religions affect that, different
Yeah.
ethnic cultures, like people who are raised in different areas of the world have different perceptions of what that looks like. There are some cultures that honor elderhood, which I love, right? I think we can learn so much from each other, right? But who honor elderhood, and that's the golden age,
Yeah.
and so I think that there's so many different expectations and stories, and that's why it's so important for us to become the author of our own story, to really tap into what do I believe, independent of what I was taught, independent of what other people think. What do I really believe at my core? Because ultimately that will determine where you feel fulfilled, where you feel aligned, and where you feel your worth and your power are. And a lot of that comes down to, okay, so what's my purpose in this life? If it's about how tight my skin is, if it's about, what my weight is, our bodies are such a gift. I found that they are a tool of communication. I have 9 chronic incurable illnesses. And I am a walking miracle. That was in my bio. Science says I should be in a wheelchair, and I'm not.
Yeah.
But a lot of that has been because I learned to listen to the cues that my body is giving me. And when I put on weight, when I put on wrinkles, when I have different symptoms, when I have different things, it's my body communicating to me in alignment with what my soul, what my personality is communicating to me about what I need, and listening to both of those and making conscious choices that are aligned with that are huge,
And the what I want to acknowledge in what you just said is the greatness is allowing it and not making it conform to what is in the outside environment and what we're being told.
I think that's the first step, is getting to the place of acceptance and allowing.
Yeah.
But I think there's an even deeper place of loving and embracing.
Yes.
With my body, age is totally relative. There are days that my body feels like it's 90 because of my symptoms and things. And I will say one of the gifts that I have found in embracing that is embracing the reality that life is so short and is so beautiful and powerful. And sometimes those wrinkles are a reminder of that in a way that inspires me to live fully every day. Like when we learn to love every part of the process and every part of the journey, which doesn't mean that the pain is pleasant when I'm having exceptionally painful days. But it is a reminder to me. I'm getting emotional. It's a reminder to me that people are what matter. Period. It is a reminder to plug into my kids. It is a reminder to plug into life and not just accomplishing because on my good days it can be really easy to get back in that mode.
Yeah.
I'm still in my parenting mode. I've got a 9-year-old also, I mean, and so we do a lot. But the things that we sometimes judge about our bodies or don't like about our bodies, when I'm putting on weight, it's a reminder for me, ooh, let's keep an eye on our health. Let's keep an eye on different things, on stress. And maybe it's time for me to get into a medical checkup, because let's be honest, at a certain age, there's things like menopause, and there's things like,
Yeah.
there's different things that it's just a reminder. Hey, this phase of life isn't going to last forever. And this
Yeah.
life isn't going to last forever. And I've learned to really love and appreciate that, because it's a reminder of what am I going to do with today? And it helps me show up 100% every day. And that's how I want to live my life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, in closing, would you mind just giving a tidbit of information what your TEDx talk is all about?
My TEDx talk was actually the process that I came to of learning the power of fashion. Because I really, it was not a passion. It was not something of mine. And it came when I was, at the peak of darkness. I had lost my health. I had lost my marriage. I'd lost my career. And I had to, it's what I call my period of rebranding. I was
Mhm.
needing to rebuild my life, and a bra helped me do that. So that's
So listen to the TEDx talk and live and learn. And I have to say, your talk so stunned me, not only about the subject area, but that you could say that much, that impactful in such a short time.
Thank you. And I thought that was the power. I feel the same. Oh, your talk, I love listening. I mean, it's like a meditation. If you haven't watched Corinna's talk, go watch it. But the same thing, it's one of the things that I loved about that experience was how much can be said in
Yeah,
such a small amount of time.
yeah. And it almost makes it more powerful because all the unnecessary extraneous stuff is cut if
Yeah.
you really pare it down. So thank you so much, Kimberly, for being here, for explaining and sharing and sharing and sharing. I really am so appreciative about who you are as a person, the wisdom that you are sharing. And thank you so, so much for being here.
Oh, it's
And I hope everybody thoroughly enjoys our conversation today and walks away a little bit wiser.
thank you. It's been a
So
pleasure. It's been a pleasure. I love you.
take care. Love you too. Bye bye.